She followed the rules, she trusted the system, but in the end, she was left with nothing, and no one came to help. She lost $100,000 0 cents to a scam that could have been stopped. In this video, we reveal the shocking truth about how this happened, the gaps that let it slip through, and what every senior and their family must do to stay protected. Her name was Elaine. She was 74. She'd worked since she was 16, saved every bonus, clipped every coupon, and never carried debt. She followed every financial rule she was taught. She trusted her bank. She trusted the people on the other end of the phone when they said they were there to help. But one call, one believable, well-practiced story was all it took. Within days, she was out $100,000 0 cents. Her savings, her security, her future, gone. Elaine's story isn't just real, it's painfully common. Seniors across the country are being targeted every single day. These scams are sophisticated, calculated, and designed to exploit trust. And when they strike, they do it fast, before most people even realize what's happening. But what makes Elaine's story even harder to hear is this: no one came to help. She went to her bank, and they said the transfer was authorized. She called the police, and they told her it was hard to trace. She confided in a family member who didn't know what to do. Everyone sympathized, but no one could undo the damage. There was no safety net. There was no warning bell loud enough to stop it. And that's the part we don't talk about enough, how these scams don't just exploit seniors, they expose the gaps in a system that leaves older adults feeling alone when it matters most. This video isn't just about what happened to Elaine. It's about what didn't happen. It's about the silence that followed, the unanswered questions, the disbelief that someone could lose everything and find no one able or willing to step in. Today, we'll walk you through exactly what happened to her, how the scam worked, why the systems in place failed her, and most importantly, what every senior and every family member must do right now to make sure the same thing doesn't happen again. Because once it happens, there's no rewind button. But there is a way to stop it from happening to you. Elaine was drinking her morning coffee when the phone rang. The voice on the line was serious but not aggressive, calm, measured, and filled with urgency cloaked in professionalism. "Ma'am, this is Agent Collins from the Federal Reserve. Your identity has been compromised. We believe someone is using your social security number to open fraudulent accounts." Elaine froze. She'd heard of scams before, but this voice didn't sound like one. It was composed, informative, even reassuring. The man knew her name. He confirmed the last 4 digits of her social security number. He explained how these scams worked, just enough truth to make it all feel real. "We're working with your bank to protect your assets," he said, "but we need your cooperation. If you don't act quickly, your entire savings could be drained." Elaine's stomach turned, her mind raced, but the voice kept her steady. "This is what we're going to do," he said. "We'll temporarily move your money to a secure federal holding account, just until we resolve the breach. It's the safest way to keep your funds from being stolen." It was framed as protection, as safety, as helping. And Elaine, who had done everything right for 74 years, listened. The scammer never once raised his voice. He never pressured. Instead, he calmly walked her through the wire transfer process. He gave her routing numbers. He instructed her to keep the process confidential to preserve the integrity of the investigation. He even thanked her for helping catch the criminal. She thought she was doing the right thing. Within hours, she had made the first transfer, $50,000 0 cents. By the end of the next day, she'd moved another $50,000 0 cents. All under the belief that she was protecting herself from someone who had stolen her identity. But in truth, she had given everything directly to the thief. What made it work wasn't a lack of intelligence, it wasn't gullibility, it was trust. The scammer had created the illusion of legitimacy so perfectly, so patiently, that Elaine never thought to question it. He used phrases that sounded official, referenced agencies she'd heard of, repeated words like federal, protection, and emergency, all designed to trigger concern and bypass logic. Elaine didn't act recklessly. She acted responsibly. Based on the information she was given, she believed she was saving her money. And that's what makes this so terrifying. Because when the lie is wrapped in the language of help, it doesn't feel like a scam. It feels like security. And by the time Elaine realized the truth, her account was empty. The wire transfers were gone, and the voice on the other end of the phone had vanished. What remained was disbelief and a question no one could answer. How did no one see it coming? Elaine didn't realize the truth right away. For 2 full days, she believed she'd done the right thing. She followed the instructions the man on the phone gave her. She waited for the confirmation email. She checked her bank account, expecting to see some proof that her money had landed in a secure place. But the email never came. On the 3rd day, the phone number that once rang directly to Agent Collins started going straight to voicemail, and her calls were never returned. That's when the panic set in. She drove to her bank with a pit in her stomach, hoping somehow there had been a mistake, that the money wasn't really gone, that this was all part of the protection plan. But when she told the teller what had happened, their expression changed. A quiet pause, a look of helpless recognition. Then came the words she'll never forget. "We're sorry, ma'am, the funds are authorized. There's nothing we can do." She sat in the bank lobby for over an hour, numb, embarrassed, alone. She kept replaying the phone call in her head, searching for the moment it should have felt wrong. But there wasn't one. She filed a police report, hopeful someone would investigate. That someone, somewhere, would track the wire. That a fraud unit would call her back. No one did. Days turned into weeks, the scammer disappeared, the file sat on someone's desk, and the silence that followed became louder than the loss itself. Elaine had lost $100,000, 0 cents. Her entire retirement, the cushion she'd built over decades. But the worst part wasn't just the money. It was what came after. The guilt, the humiliation, the sleepless nights wondering how she didn't see it, the hesitation to tell her children, the fear that people would think she wasn't sharp anymore, the slow withdrawal from the things she once enjoyed. Elaine stopped going to church. She canceled her weekly lunch with friends. She avoided phone calls. She couldn't bear the thought of saying the words out loud, "I got scammed." Because it didn't just feel like a crime, it felt like a failure. That's what scammers count on, not just the money, but the silence. They know that guilt is the lock that keeps the door closed, that embarrassment is the reason stories like Elaine's go untold. But her story deserves to be told, because it's not just about what she lost, it's about what she learned, and what you can learn from it before it's too late. Elaine did everything right, until the moment she trusted the wrong voice. And even after the truth came to light, she still believed someone would come to help, but no one did. When she went to the bank and explained what had happened, she expected alarms to go off, a fraud team, an investigation, a chance to stop the transfer or freeze the funds. But what she was told was devastatingly simple. You authorized the transaction. And technically, she had. That's the loophole so many scammers use. They don't break in, they walk in through the front door with the key you never meant to hand them. And because it doesn't look like theft on paper, the system shrugs. Banks are required to protect against unauthorized access. But when a transaction is initiated by the customer, even under manipulation, it rarely gets flagged. No red warning, no freeze, no second verification call, just silence. Elaine hoped that maybe someone in her family would have caught it, but she didn't tell them until it was over, until the damage had already been done. Not because she didn't trust them, but because she was ashamed. Like so many seniors, she thought asking for help would make her look incapable. She didn't want to burden her kids. She didn't want anyone questioning her independence. So she stayed quiet, and that silence gave the scammer exactly what they needed. When she filed a police report, it felt like the start of something. Maybe someone would trace the wire, investigate the call. But days passed, then weeks, and no one followed up. What Elaine learned later was this: elder fraud cases are often deprioritized. Local departments are overwhelmed. Most don't have specialized units that focus on financial scams targeting seniors. And in many cases, the trail leads overseas, making recovery nearly impossible. There's a dangerous silence surrounding elder financial abuse. It hides behind embarrassment. It's buried under paperwork. It's pushed aside by systems that aren't built for this kind of theft. Emotional, manipulative, and legal, on the surface. Elaine's story isn't just about what she lost. It's about what she was never given. A warning, a second check, a system that paused long enough to ask, is this right? But now you know. And that's where real protection begins. Not with another password, but with a conversation, with awareness, with refusing to be silent anymore. Because the next time someone like Elaine picks up the phone, maybe, just maybe, they'll pause. And maybe that pause will be enough to save everything. Elaine kept asking herself one question: how did I not see it? But the truth is, the signs were there. She just didn't know how to recognize them. The scammer was calm, polite, and professional, but underneath that polished tone were the classic tactics of financial manipulation. Tactics used every day to target older adults who've spent a lifetime trusting others. The first red flag was urgency. From the very start, the caller framed the situation as an emergency. "Your identity has been compromised," he said. "If you don't act quickly, your entire account could be drained." Elaine didn't get time to think. She got pressure to act. That's exactly how scammers take control, by making fear louder than reason. When you feel rushed, it's hard to stop and ask questions. The second red flag was secrecy. The caller told Elaine she couldn't talk to anyone. Not her bank, not her family. "This is part of a federal investigation," he warned. "If you share details, you could compromise the case." And because she wanted to do the right thing, she followed those instructions. She didn't ask for help. She didn't double-check the story. She stayed silent, believing she was protecting something. What she didn't realize was that secrecy is the scammer's most powerful weapon. It isolates the victim. It removes the safety net. It ensures there's no one else around to say, "Wait, this doesn't make sense." The third red flag was guided control. The man didn't ask her to figure anything out on her own. He walked her through every step. He gave her instructions on how to open the bank app, what to type, which buttons to press. He made her feel like she was part of a process. But what he was really doing was controlling it all, from start to finish. He never asked for her PIN or account number outright. Instead, he coached her to authorize the transaction herself, making it harder to reverse, harder to trace, and easier to justify in the eyes of the bank. And Elaine, trusting and afraid, followed his lead. She didn't know that those three things, urgency, secrecy, and guided financial action, are the core of almost every scam targeting seniors today. She'd seen the news stories, but they always sounded so obvious, so avoidable, until it happened to her. That's the danger of these red flags. They don't look like warning signs when they're wrapped in concern and professionalism. They look like help, like solutions, like someone trying to protect you. But now you know better. If someone demands secrecy, it's not protection, it's deception. If someone pushes urgency, it's not caution, it's control. If someone walks you through moving your money, they're not helping, they're stealing. Elaine didn't see the signs, but you can. And that awareness alone could be the reason you hang up, ask questions, and stop the scam before it begins. What happened to Elaine was tragic, but not irreversible for the rest of us. The most powerful thing her story gives us isn't just a warning, it's a guide, a path toward protection, not just for ourselves, but for those we love. The first and most critical rule: never send money, wire funds, or share your account details with someone who contacted you out of the blue. Not your bank, not the IRS, not Medicare. Real organizations don't operate like that. If someone calls, emails, or texts you asking for sensitive information, hang up, end the conversation immediately. Then pause, breathe, and verify. Pick up your bank card and call the number printed on the back. Reach out to the official website or login portal you normally use. Don't rely on a number or link sent to you by the caller. That's part of the scam. When in doubt, ask someone you trust, a child, a friend, a neighbor. Sometimes all it takes is a second voice to recognize something isn't right. Spammers know that hesitation breaks their control. They count on fast reactions. But the moment you pause, you shift the power back to yourself. Another simple tool that can make a huge difference: set up transaction alerts on your bank and credit accounts. These notifications, whether by text or email, let you know the moment money moves. You'll catch suspicious activity right away, and if something looks off, you can freeze your account before more damage is done. You can also request daily withdrawal limits from your bank. That way, even if someone does trick you, they can't drain your account all at once. It adds a layer of friction, one more barrier between a scammer and your life savings. And most importantly, for large financial decisions, involve a second person. This doesn't mean giving up control. It means building in protection. Think of it like a seatbelt. It's there just in case something goes wrong. If you're moving a large sum, transferring funds, or unsure about a request, don't go it alone. Even a 5-minute call to a family member could be the difference between security and loss. Elaine didn't have that checkpoint. She didn't have a pause or a second voice or a transaction alert. And that's what the scammer used to his advantage. But now you do. You have this knowledge, you have this moment, and you have the ability to stop a scam before it starts. It doesn't take paranoia, it just takes awareness. And if Elaine's story helps even one person pause before making a costly mistake, then something good can still come from something terrible. Because protection isn't about fear, it's about wisdom. And it's never too late to put it into practice. When Elaine finally told her story, she didn't expect anything to change. The money was gone. The damage had been done. But something remarkable happened the moment she spoke out. People listened. And more importantly, they began to talk. It turns out the most powerful tool we have against scams isn't a piece of technology or a new kind of password. It's each other, our voices, our stories, our willingness to speak the uncomfortable truth so others don't have to learn the hard way. Scammers succeed in silence. They rely on shame, on isolation, on the belief that this only happened to me. But it didn't, and it doesn't. It's happening to someone else right now, maybe someone you know. Maybe someone who trusts their phone just a little too much, or someone who's afraid to ask for help, or someone who still thinks that would never happen to me. That's why sharing stories like Elaine's matters. Because real stories break through the denial. They create connection. They replace shame with solidarity. So tell someone. Send this video to a friend, a sibling, your church group. Start the conversation over coffee. Ask, gently, has anything strange happened with your bank lately? Check in with your parents, not just about how they're feeling physically, but about how they're managing financially. Just like we ask about blood pressure or medications, we should be asking, have you gotten any suspicious calls lately? Normalize caution. Normalize second opinions. Let people know that hesitation isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That double-checking is a strength, not a flaw. That speaking up after something goes wrong isn't embarrassing, it's brave and necessary. We talk about fraud prevention like it's about technology, but it's really about community, about building a culture where it's okay to say, I'm not sure, and ask for help without fear of being judged, where no one has to pretend they're fine when they're really confused or afraid. Elaine's loss was real, but what she gained, the ability to speak her story aloud, to spare someone else the same fate, that's what turned pain into purpose. And that's where the healing starts. You don't need to be an expert to protect someone. You just need to be willing to talk. Because every shared story becomes a shield. Every honest conversation builds a barrier against deception. And every person who listens is one less person who'll fall into the same trap. So don't let this story end here. Pass it on. Because talking about it doesn't just save money. it can save lives. Elaine didn't lose her savings because she was foolish. She lost it because she trusted, just like anyone would. Because the voice on the phone didn't sound like a criminal, it sounded like help, like guidance, like protection. And that's what makes these scams so devastating. They're not just financial crimes, they're personal betrayals. They steal more than money. They take our sense of security, our confidence, and sometimes even our hope. They make us question ourselves, our judgment, and the world we've always believed in. But here's the truth that matters most. What happened to Elaine could happen to anyone. It wasn't about her intelligence. It wasn't about her being careless. It was about someone using her goodness against her, and no one stepping in until it was too late. That's why telling her story matters. That's why you matter. Because every time someone shares their experience, someone else is protected. Every time we break the silence, we break the scammer's power. Every time we talk about what happened, without shame, without blame, we create a safer world for our parents, our grandparents, and ourselves. Scammers count on silence, but we don't have to give it to them. You now know the signs, you know the tactics, you know what it feels like to listen to a story that could so easily become your own. And with that knowledge, you carry the power to protect yourself and others. So keep the conversation going, check in on the people you love, share Elaine's story, talk about your own if you've been there. Because when we stay silent, scammers win. But when we share, learn, and protect one another, no one gets left behind. Not again. Thank you for being here and for listening all the way through. If Elaine's story touched your heart or reminded you of someone you love, please don't let it end here. Share this video. Start a conversation. You never know whose life or life savings you might help protect. And if this is the first time you've joined us, I invite you to subscribe to Elderly Truths. This is a space for real stories, gentle warnings, and honest conversations about aging, with dignity, awareness, and strength. Because no one should have to go through what Elaine did, and the more we talk, the more we protect. Take care of yourself, and take care of each other. Until next time.